Ashley. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. It is fall. It's the season of pumpkin spice lattes and other hot beverages, curling up with a blanket inside. The weather's getting slightly chillier. It's the perfect time to pick up a book, but you don't want to read just any book. You want to read a book that maybe has a bit of spooky vibes, maybe has some supernatural creatures in it. And so I have this recommendation video for you. It is going to be a list of books that are great reads, but also I'm going to break them up into categories, which I'll have as chapters, so you can pick which kinds of books you want to hear more about. Each of these books pairs perfectly with your pumpkin spice latte. Before I get into it, if you could please subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. It really helps me and it means a lot. I really would like to hear more about you, so if you are watching this video, put down in the comments where you live. Where are you from? I'm from Toronto, Canada, which is the biggest city in Canada. If you're not Canadian, you have a chance of having heard of it, but we're a little over 3 million people. It's a very diverse place. And yeah, I was born and raised in Canada, so I am a full Canadian. The other thing I would really love for you to tell me is, what is your go-to fall beverage? For me, I love a pumpkin spice latte. I would like to drink it hot, but I need the weather to get a bit cooler for that, so I will drink it iced as well. But I just love that kind of pumpkin-y, spicy flavor. Absolutely delicious. This is coffee, and I have like a caramel pumpkin syrup that's sugar-free that I put in it. So in the comments, tell me, what is your go-to fall hot beverage? The first category is Witchy Reads. All of these romanticises have either witch characters or witchcraft and magic in them. The first book is by T. Kingfisher, and this is called Nettle and Bone. Nettle and Bone follows a character called Mara. She's a bit shy and quiet, and she has seen her sister suffer at the hands of an abusive prince for a long time. She meets a grave witch, which is very powerful, and she basically will be given the tools to defeat this prince, but first she has to complete a series of tasks. So if you're kind of hankering for a book that has a quest in it, this is a perfect one for you. There's a very ragtag, entertaining group of characters that band together and go along with Mara to help her complete her quests. You have the grave witch, who is very powerful. You have a reluctant fairy godmother. Yes, reluctant. And yes, fairy godmother. So this book definitely has quite a bit of a sprinkling of different fairy tale elements kind of mashed together. You have a chicken that is possessed by a demon. You have a former knight. This book has a lot of heart in it. It's very well written. If you are looking for not only a quest, but in the context of a dark fairy tale retelling, the book has a lot of heart. As I said, it's not too long, so it's good if you want something that's a bit of a shorter read. We don't always want to have to feel like we're struggling to get through a book. The fantasy world is just so well drawn, and I really like that aspect of this book. And if you're wanting a good revenge quest, this is the one for you. Our next book is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. The UK version is called The Crimson Moth. The series, I think it's actually a duology, is called The Crimson Moth, and this follows Rune. She's actually a witch, but she has to keep her identity secret. And essentially her cover is this vapid, airhead, party girl socialite, and at night she turns into the Crimson Moth, where she is rescuing fellow witches from getting purged. Now Gideon, he is another character in this, and he is hunting this so-called villainous Crimson Moth, and he's traced them to Rune's merchant ships, and the story goes from there. The tagline in this one is, "The only thing more treacherous than being a witch is falling in love." This one definitely has enemies to lovers vibes in it all throughout. I picked this one up on the recommendation of Raven-Haired Reader here on BookTube, And I think if you grab this one, you won't be disappointed, particularly if you're in the mood for the witch hunter type vibe. Now, if you remember, Serpent and Dove was really popular. That was also, that one actually was where a witch and a witch hunter had to get married. And that one was okay. Like, I wasn't a huge fan, but it was okay. And I think this one is the best version of that kind of trope that I've seen. Moving right along here, actually first, before we move along, sip of my coffee. The next book is called The Witch Collector, and as the title suggests, you have a place, and every harvest moon, the Witch Collector comes and takes one of the people back to the immortal Frost King. Yes, that is the setup. Sounds a little silly when I'm saying it, but I promise if you give this book a chance, you will like it. Our main character hasn't been chosen, however, her sister has, and she wants to get revenge and destroy both the Witch Collector and the Frost King. However, things get complicated, and you get kind of some plot twists where basically the Witch Collector is the only one who can help her get to her sister or help her sister. And the main character is also mute and uses the main character is deaf and uses sign language to communicate. I really like that aspect. You have forced proximity, you have touch her and die, overprotective hero vibes in here. If you're liking that trope, definitely pick this one up. The book was first recommended to me by The Book Huddle, which is a popular Bookstagram account, also Canadian. Shout out to our fellow Canadian book content creators. It's a great series. It's great witchy read for this time of year. That is The Witch Collector by Carissa. All right, moving on to a category of books that I really enjoy. We've got a werewolf, and I'm not saying like werewolf side characters, okay? If you want some good werewolf side characters, read anything by Cassandra Clare or anything by or read the Zodiac Academy series, because you have werewolf characters, but they are part of a cast of supernatural characters, like you've got vampires and fae and all sorts of other creatures thrown in there. No, this category is for books that are werewolf heavy. One of the main characters is a werewolf, and you're getting a lot of pack dynamics. The first book I want to talk to you about in this category, and really this book, it's an absolute stunner. It's just so well written and understated. I feel like a lot of fantasy romance are like bam, bam, in your face. This is an urban fantasy. It is set in our modern world, but you have shapeshifters, werewolves, and the story is called Wolf Song. I know, it's an absolutely beautiful title, and it is by T.J. Klune. You might know T.J. Klune from Under the Whispering Door or Beyond the Cerulean Sea. And he's been sort of popular. He writes a lot of MM romances, so this is an MM romance. And you have our main character of Oxnard, or Ox, who is sort of underappreciated and almost like borderline abused by his father, then abandoned. However, he's very close with like this mechanic, and so he's working in this mechanic shop. And next door, a giant family, the Bennetts, moves beside them, and he befriends the youngest, Joe. And the Bennetts are shifters. Joe and Ox have a very special relationship. Everything gets kind of turned upside down when a murderer comes to town, and Joe ends up fleeing. I think they're in pursuit, the Bennetts, of this murderer. 3 years later, he returns, and Ox has actually kind of like formed a pack of his own, and we see kind of like the romance and relationship kind of start to blossom, because they're sort of young and friends, and then they turn into like kind of more than friends. And it's just beautiful. I think there's a part where it's like, when I was reading the synopsis earlier, because it's been a while since I read this book, T.J. Klune wrote, they can no longer ignore the song that sings between them. And I don't know, I just love it. If you want that kind of like gloomy, spooky, small town vibe, and there's kind of like murderer, like threat of this other kind of insidious character, and urban fantasy, understated, very character driven, this is the book for you. All right, next up we have Shiver, which is book 1 in a series of 4, The Wolves of Mercy Falls by Maggie Stevaver. This is the story of Grace, who has seen this yellow-eyed wolf in the back property of her house. There's this forest, and she sees this wolf there. Sam has spent most of his time kind of between two worlds. He is guarding his pack in the wintertime, and he can actually be human, and Grace in the human, when he's human, Grace recognizes her yellow-eyed wolf because he becomes her, the yellow-eyed boy standing right before her. Short months where Sam can be human and be with Grace. This is a very angsty story. I've heard amazing things about the audiobook narration. So if you're interested in a good audiobook, I think this would be one to check out. If you want a good angsty romance, this is perfect for if you've enjoyed Becca Fitzpatrick's Hush Hush novels. I think that you would really like this one. I read one book that called this Twilight Team Jacob version, which I thought was kind of funny. So if you are a Twilight fan and you wanted Jacob to get the girl, then maybe you should pick this one up. Next book I have to recommend to you is by none other than my favorite contemporary romance author, or one of, and that is Queen Ali Hazelwood. You might know her from her feminist romantic rom-com novels, and she has done her first foray into paranormal romance with the book Bride. Bride follows Misery, who is the daughter of a prominent vampire. She is wed to the head of the werewolf pack. He's an alpha. Yes. Yes. She is married off to the head and alpha of a werewolf pack in the hopes of improving werewolf-vampire relations. There's a very cute, little sister of the male main character. There is some pretty funny dynamics. Ali Hazelwood has this cheeky, witty style. She's really good at writing really relatable characters. Even though this person's a vampire, you really understand that she hasn't felt loved for the majority of her life. She has a bit of self-loathing. Now, underlying all of the romance in this story is essentially a story of a person whose friend is lost. Her friend is missing, and that is her motivation for going along with this marriage, because she believes that the werewolf alpha has something to do with the disappearance of her friend. This is a quick book. I think I read it in one night or so. Very entertaining, very fast-paced, not super heavy. It's an urban fantasy romance. There's not a lot of world building. There is a little bit of Omegaverse sprinkled in there, so I think there's a bit of nodding, but it's really Omegaverse light. If you were looking for basically a contemporary romance that has paranormal creatures in it, is what I would call this one, then you definitely want to pick up Bride. Before I stop talking about this book, the bride wears a white jumpsuit to her wedding, okay? You need to pick up this book. Next category of books that I would like to talk to you about is books with Enchanted Forests. And the first book I would like to recommend to you is The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed. In this book, you have a group of essentially pagans. They live in the forest, and they are all born with magical powers. However, our main character, Yuvike, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Yuvike, she is born without powers, and the reason people think is her quote-unquote corrupted bloodline, because she's actually she's actually her father was a Yuli man, and they're kind of like inspired by the Jewish people. The book is inspired by Jewish Hungarian mythology, and essentially the woodsmen come to her village frequently to get one of the pagan girls. Her fellow villagers betray her and send her for the blood sacrifice, and she's being taken by the woodsmen, and while that happens, monsters attack, and it turns into a story of her and this one remaining woodsman. And there's a fanatical king in the background. There's a bit of father-daughter, rediscovering, who you are and your origin story. If you like kind of a gloomy but really good relationship dynamics, a light on the romance, but it is there, and there is tension, and it is kind of star-crossed lovers, if you will, because surprise, surprise, it's going to be a bit of a romance between our main character and the woodsman. Then if you want any of those elements in your book, in your fall read, then you definitely want to pick that one up. The next book is a Red Riding retelling, and it is called For the Wolf, which I just love the title of it. It is by Hannah Witten. Listen to the premise of this story. The first daughter is for the crown, and the second daughter born is for the wolf. So our main character, Red, is essentially sacrificed to this enchanted forest and wolf that lives there. When she gets there, she finds out there's a lot more to the wolf and to this world than meets the eye. I think this story was really great at just being this kind of spooky, creepy. It's got a bit of Beauty and the Beast, it's got a bit of Little Red Riding Hood, and it's also a really fast-paced, easy read if you're looking for something that fits there. Low spice, very low spice. There is a bit of romance, but it's not like there isn't going to be any. It's very like Fade to Black, Closed Door, and it's kind of, I believe it is a young adult. It definitely leans towards a younger audience. That is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. Next we have a beautifully told fairy tale retelling called The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. If you haven't heard of this story, it follows Vasilisa, who grows up hearing about different mythological stories, different things about spirits, and her happy family is constantly doing rituals to honor these spirits. Her mother dies, her father brings home a new wife from Moscow, and this new wife forbids Vasilisa and her family from honoring the household spirits. Vasilisa begins to suspect that there is a lot more to this whole honoring spirits. It's not just superstition, and things start to go wrong. Their crops start to die. Misfortune starts to befall their small village. Evil creatures in the forest begin to creep nearer and nearer. And all while this is happening, Vasilisa's stepmother is determined to either marry her off or lock her up in a convent. Vasilisa has a secret, a gift she has been concealing, and she's going to call on this gift to protect her family. This book is absolutely enchanting and spellbinding. The writing is beautiful. It really makes you feel like you're in this cold, magical setting. Catherine Arden really did an amazing job with this one. There is beautiful lyrical prose, slow, gradual plot development. It is absolutely haunting. It is got a fiery main character, and it is one that once you pick up, you will not want to put down. The next category is magical schools. This is a bit of a dark academia, but with sort of a spooky take. I have 3 really excellent books that I want to recommend to you, and the first one is by Harper L. Woods, and it is called The Coven. The main character in this book is basically her father's weapon, and so she ends up going to this special school to help her develop her witchy magic. And the thing about this school is that there was a massacre years ago, so there's the souls of those who were killed, who are out for blood, and in addition there is the Coven, which is about to open up and take 13 of the most promising students who will change the world. There is Alaric, a very broody headmaster, and this book is just kind of a fun read. There is spice, but it doesn't overwhelm the story. The banter in this is top-notch. If you're looking for good banter, you definitely want to pick this one up. It's that dark romantasy feel. It's quite popular. It was nominated on Goodreads for Best Romantasy. That is The Coven by Harper L. Woods. Next book is one that is very special to my heart. It is an absolutely well done retelling of Arthurian legend mixed with dark academia, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. It follows our main character, Bree Matthews, and she has lost her mother. Her mother was very important to her, so she is grieving, and she goes to university, and it turns out there are demons. There is a secret society called the Legendborn. She befriends this mage who is a Merlin, and it is all about this secret society and how they are battling evil and who are the true descendants of King Arthur. I really like how Tracy Dion put a Black-centric spin on Arthurian legend. I haven't seen anything quite like this. If you like kind of retellings that do the retelling with a lens towards including previously disenfranchised groups, then you will like this book. And it is a duology. The next book I have to talk to you about is called Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. You might have heard Leigh Bardugo's name because she is behind the Grishaverse and all of those books and the show. What I want to say about this book is it is a dark academia, more of an urban fantasy feel, so it is not the high fantasy that is the Grishaverse, but it is extremely well done. The claustrophobic mystery feel of this book, the complex, morally gray character that is our main character, Galaxy or Alex Stern. She is basically involved in a very horrible tragedy. She has kind of a deadbeat mother, but she has special powers, and these special powers are why this secret society at Yale approaches her and essentially asks her to come to Yale. She'll get a scholarship, but in exchange, she must perform duties for the Ninth House. The Ninth House keeps all the other occult houses in check. And there's also a murder mystery element going on. There's a crotchety detective. There is her personal mentor, and I think it's Darlington. Yeah, Darlington is her mentor's name. There's some really good banter, really good murder mystery with a twist ending, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Pick this one up if you're looking for this kind of like claustrophobic, mysterious, dark academia vibes type book. It's definitely not heavy on the romance at all, but there is some romantic elements, and I think they get developed, if I recall, much more in book 2, which is Hellbound. And it's very just creepy and occult, not like fun ghosts, like creepy ghosts and creepy rituals, and basically the wealthy just keeping their power and getting wealthier. I hope you have enjoyed my fall-focused, fall-themed romantasy recommendation books. If you made it to this point in the video, leave me a pumpkin emoji down in the comments. I want to say thank you so very much for clicking on this video, for watching it. Let me know if you're going to read any of these books, which books have been added to your TBR, which books have you read from my list, and what did you think of them? Do you agree that they're perfect for the fall season? If you like this type of content, please check out some of my other videos. I have lots of romantasy content on here. I'm a huge Sarah J. Maas fan. And if you could consider subscribing to my channel, that would mean the absolute world to me. In the meantime, this is Ashley saying goodbye. Have a great day. Happy reading and take care.